Nane demos that have been called by the Gen Zs an attempt to remove President William Ruto from power. Zakayo atashuka ama hatashuka is the question this morning. In studio, I'm joined by Steve Mbugua. He is the council member, Law Society of Kenya, and as well Ikenye Uno, a youth leader, also a law student. Joining us shortly will be Bonaya Rova, President Kenyatta University, even as we focus on these Nane demos. And the Gen Zs are getting up for yet another round of protests today in their quest for reforms in the country. They're now calling on Kenyans to turn up in large numbers for the protest dubbed Nane March, even as they warned goons against infiltrating the peaceful protests with the intention to cause chaos and then blame it on them. Busara Naman now reports.
Despite calls from leaders across the country urging Gen Zs to consider calling off Thursday's anti-government protests, the youth have vowed to continue with the protests.
Hizi taxes zako zimetoka wapi? Unajali mwananchi wa kawaida kweli? Na ndio tunatoka nje tukuambia hii government ya Ruto si ya mwananchi wa kawaida, ni ya mabilionaires. Na tutokeni kama tumekasirika. Wakituua tutaendelea na struggle.
Reiterating that their protests will be peaceful, the youth cautioned the police against harassment and brutality.
And today we are saying that Nane tomorrow is going to be covered within the legal constitution. And we are hoping that the police will also be legal with us in the streets.
If we see unidentified men in civilian clothing riding in government vehicles that have obfuscated policies, we shall treat them as robbers.
Following the police warning that the Nane March could be infiltrated by goons threatening the country's security, they have urged their fellow youth to reject being used by politicians to cause chaos.
Kesho ni siku ya kuchukua nchi yetu. Na tunasema ya kwamba tunajua vijana wetu wa ghetto wamekuwa kitumika kama goons. Kesho ni siku ya kukataa na kusema ya kwamba hizo pesa wamekuwa wakiiba, anakuja kutulipa nazo twende tuibia Wakenya wenzetu. Tumekataa hiyo jinga ya tumekataa.
Some of the demands they are calling for include good governance, accountability, reduced taxes, end of nepotism, IEBC reconstitution, affordable education system and affordable health insurance, among other fresh demands. They also maintain that leaders unable to fulfill their mandate should step aside for the sake of a better future for the country.
People need accountability, respect and transparency in governance. These are very rational demands. The Kenyan people are crying loudly that they want a sovereign country not to be ruled by dogs of great powers. They are crying for a pro-people regime.
Elsewhere, the League of Young Civic Educators has urged all young people to register as voters as they prepare for the 2027 general election to ensure that they can be able to vote in the right leaders.
We need to have a force at the moment with the young people so that by 2027 we have a clear presidential candidate who also can be a young leader, so that we really have the leadership that we want as the Kenyan people and also as the young people.
Busara Naman, K24 TV.
And the D-Day is here. Steve Mbugua, from the Law Society of Kenya, perhaps just give an update of how many are still missing. I know you rely on the human rights lobby groups. Also, perhaps those who are still held in Communicado, how many cases are in court, the deaths that were witnessed or have been witnessed so far since the Gen Z demonstrations began, and also those who have been injured. And you have been at the forefront of championing for the rights of protesters during these particular demonstrations, even as we begin.
Thank you very much, and I want to salute all the patriots out of this, outside this country and outside this country, and those who have been agitating for good governance. Because as we have said, Kenya is taking a new shape, and people have become a bit more aware of the needs of the need for good governance. I can confirm that from the Law Society of Kenya, we have filed a number of petitions, which are almost 15 petitions right now, which have been mainly on persons who have been abducted, habeas corpus applications. Some of them we have withdrawn along the way because some of the persons who are missing, we have been able to be were found in their homes, and some have been released by the police. But that does not mean that now we have dropped the suits, because we have now filed fresh petitions against the police officers who have the Inspector General of Police, the OCS of various police stations. Some of them we have sued them on individual capacity because of the act of abductions and use of excessive force to the peaceful protesters. And we have been trying to work with the data which is being provided by the Kenya National Human Rights Commission, because it is the only entity which has been providing data when it comes to this issue of persons who are missing, persons who have been arrested during the protest, those who have been killed. It is unfortunate that the IPOA, which is an entity we expect to be carrying out independent oversight on the police use of excessive force, have failed bluntly to provide data or even to collect any data, or even share with the data. We have even written to them a number of times requesting for the information on the persons who have been abducted and cases which are ongoing of the use of excessive force. Unfortunately, they have not provided any information, despite the commitment by one of the commissioners, Fatima, to do so. And therefore, we still call upon them to do their duty and respect their mandate under the Constitution, and ensure that they carry out independent investigations and initiate prosecution against these particular officers who have deliberately misused or used excessive force on peaceful protesters.
You know, as LSK, you're not on the radar of the government, and persons have been funded by the Ford Foundation. But today you're carrying a flag. Also, at today's demonstrations, you know, are they expected to be organic or sponsored? And why are you carrying a flag today, Wakili?
I did not carry this flag on behalf of LSK. I carried it as a Kenyan, and as I show that I'm a patriot and I'm advocating for the good governance. But I can say that Kenyans are doing this on their own volition. Everyone, no one is being funded. No one is being funded to come from. I used Thika Road to find my way to the city, and I can tell you the number of roadblocks which the government has mounted. All the way from Ruiru, go to Garden City, there is a roadblock. Guru Nanak, there is a roadblock. And the same is being witnessed in various roads, the main roads.
So what is happening? Are they frisking or?
They are frisking mostly the matatus, and they are checking the passengers with the assumption, obviously, they are going to think the Gen Zs are in those matatus. But we are in the city, and we are going to protest.
You're already in the CBD.
Yeah.
Well, and now to, you know, Uno. Thank you so much for getting time. You are a law student, and these demonstrations, the Nane demonstrations are here. What is this that is now influencing the youth to come out in the streets again? You know, Kenyans, a section of them fail to understand why the demos again. I mean, the president has been listening.
Well, it gives me great pleasure to be here this morning so that we can keep the conversation moving, and especially on matters pertaining the youth, and not only the youth, but the topography of our Kenyan politics, because I can support this, you know, the words of Abraham Lincoln in the famous Gettysburg speech in 1863. He said that, let these deaths not be in vain, but rather create a room for a rebirth, for one nation and a God. And this one very arcane situation in Kenya, because we've lost so many youths, we've lost so many people, for so many lives, in the process of trying to restructure, trying to fix our country. We are not yet there, but at least we have made a lot of strides in ensuring that at least we are trying to ensure that our country is in good position. Let me say this, that it is so very much sad that the issues that former presidents have been fighting. I'll give you a very good example. President Jomo Kenyatta had a foundational principle, rather the pillars that guided his governance were fighting poverty, diseases, and illiteracy. Funny enough, these are some of the issues that we are still fighting 60 plus years after he is left. We're still facing illiteracy. Our youths don't have a good education. Our civic population does not, it suffers from illiteracy. People do not know laws that affect their existence. People do not know laws, they don't know, they don't have that proper knowledge about laws that affect their day-to-day operations. And a very good example is a finance bill. As they were passing the 2023 finance bill, most people did not know what it entails. And so I am so very much grateful and full of delectation, knowing that at least it's a new dawn. People know what affects them. And that's why we are having all these uproars from the youths who have been raising pertinent issues. And I hope that the conversation is going to keep on. Yeah.
And now Bonaya Rover, President Kenyatta University, has just joined us. Good morning. And the Gen Zs are actually increasing pressure. Why so? I mean, the president has appeared to have given the listening ear to the Gen Zs and the demands that were presented by them. What is these remaining issues? What are these remaining issues and the demands that have not yet been met by the president?
Thank you so much for having me this morning. And I will begin by denoting that the pressure neither increases or decreases. The pressure creases. And with that statement actually being put forward, the demands by the Gen Zs or the demands by the youth of this country are simply by fact and virtue of poor governance that has been witnessed up to this particular point in time. And the previous shows that I've attended, I have particularly stated and said, when they say Ruto must go, it is an analogy that means that bad governance should exit the entire coexistence of the governance of this country. And to narrow down onto my own issue that are affecting students in the various campuses, we are having the new funding model that has actually been put by this particular presidential working party. And we have been aggravating day in, day out on the new funding model. And these are the kind of decrees that young people are actually having out there, that this country or the management or the governance of this country is actually not getting to put a listening ear. Towards the beginning of the demos, they said student leaders are rather shaky or they are wet. They're not as vibrant as they were in the initial days. It is simply by fact and virtue of students not being on session at that particular point in time. And Gen Zs are leaderless. So when it comes to matters affecting us individually, like the increase in fees in the universities and the diverging element of studies in our various institutions, is where now we shall actually get to come out and articulate our issues properly, so that we actually get to make strides as a country. Because education, as a sector of this economy, in fact, as a sector of any economy, should be put a priority ahead of close to about anything. Because education is what produces people that we have right now. We are all a product of our education. We are all a product of professionalism. So if we don't actually go out on the streets to defend our professionalism and defend what we actually get to stand for, it means that this country in the next few years will have a hellhole instead of a country.
Well, this morning, President William Ruto is expected to swear in his new cabinet. 19 out of 20 were approved by the National Assembly, already gazetted. You know, Wakili, President William Ruto will be shortly, in a few minutes' time, swearing in his new cabinet. That is around 9 a.m., according to the invite that we, the media, got. But already a gazette, you know, they were gazetted, the 19. You know, legally, is it swearing in first, then gazetting, or gazetting, then swearing in? Which one is supposed to come first?
Once you have been approved by the cabinet, the vetting process has already been completed. Then what follows?
By Parliament, you mean?
Yes, by Parliament. The vetting has they have already been approved by the Parliament. So what now is waiting is just a ceremony. The aspect of just taking all these more of a ceremonial aspect of it, which now follows with the gazette of those particular individuals who are going to be taking over the office as cabinet secretaries.
Do you feel there has been a rush? There's no room for even anyone to go to court.
Guys have already gone to court, and there is a matter already in court challenging
this morning?
Not this morning, but I think the application was filed. The petition was filed last week. I think early last week. And the reason why those who have gone to court about it without even diverging to the details of the matter for avoidance of sub judice, it is because some of these persons who have been nominated have very serious issues when it comes to aspect of integrity. They have failed to meet the test of integrity. Some of them, and what is very unfortunate, when they went for vetting, we noticed that the parliament is still the same rubber stamp of the executive without even carrying out the oversight role. When someone sits at the vetting panel and just indicate that I am worth 800 million, I am worth 1 billion, I am worth 2-point-something billion, no one is bothered to find out this individual who has been in the public service for almost an entire part of their life, how did they accumulate this wealth? Someone who took office 2 years ago has managed to increase their wealth with more than 200 million, and nobody is bothered to find out how did this money generate? What capital did you inject into the economy for it to give you a return of 200 million within a span of less than 2 years to make you now worth a net? Because when you're saying your net worth, I mean, it's after paying all the debts and the liabilities, you are left with 800 million as your profit.
There's even a 2.3 billion.
Yeah, and even 2.3 billion. So you can imagine these persons who have been in the public service for more than 20 years, how they have accumulated this kind of wealth. No person in parliament bothered to know where they got this wealth. No one even questioned to get the proof of how this wealth was grown and how it has impacted even in the economy. Because when you are worth 2.3 billion, you should be having a very serious impact when it comes to the economy. That's some of the budget of some of the counties and in this country.
Kenya, the Gen Z demonstrations gave President William Ruto an opportunity to reset his government. And the cabinet was dismissed, his maiden cabinet. Another one was reconstituted, and the parliament yesterday approved 19 out of 20 nominees. Did the parliament at least heed to the calls of the Gen Z's pressure in terms of at least one was not approved? I mean, is that not a show of goodwill already from the National Assembly? Why are we still regarding parliament as a rubber stamp?
Okay. I will want to buttress what Wakili has just said, that of course we are having a conflict between the legislators, the members of parliament executing their roles as oversight, and them being politicians. We are very much aware that part of the cabinet was proposed by the Right Honorable Raila Odinga. And of course, what do we expect members of the Azimio coalition and particularly the ODM party were to support any application or rather nomination from their party leader. So to me, all this was just but a matter of formality. It is very important to note, it's worth noting that of course the president had an opportunity to create a new moment. It was a moment of rebirth. But at the same time, we as Kenyans cannot appoint or rather nominate a cabinet for him. It is up to him to read the mood, to read the atmosphere of what Kenyans are now calling for. The Gen Zs were very categorical that they wanted fresh blood. We've seen a recycling, and it's funny enough that I was seeing a very interesting and funny tweet by a famous social media influencer who was saying that the president is now very intentional on matters to do with the Ministry of Environment because he's proven to be a master of recycling. So we've seen old people who've served in the government who cannot pave way.
So you wanted a Gen Z to be in Ruto's cabinet?
Not necessarily a Gen Z, but we wanted fresh blood which has not been on these spaces before.
There was a fresh blood. That is
Muga.
No, actually, the one who was rejected was also a fresh blood.
Yeah.
But, and you know, the concern here was she does not understand the docket.
I'll also question this. When we had the first cabinet, the President
Perhaps not
Ruto's-
the president prefers, those who are knowledgeable.
Yeah, they were knowledgeable.
And maybe they are politicians.
To him. But let me give you this example. When we were having the first vetting process of the first cabinet of President William Ruto, we had Penina Malonza, who did not perform well in her vetting, in her turn to be vetted. But now we've had Madam Stella Soi. I'm not vouching for her, but well, we have those days when we have poor debates. We have generally those bad days. But I don't see any reason why we can allow a minister like Mr. Ogamba, who has no track record in the field of education, to override also Madam Stella Soi. This means that we should also have Moses Kuria coming back, you see. But I am grateful that there are pertinent issues being raised.
Ruto said, huyu mama Aisha Jumwa sitamwachilia. Can we perhaps
Sasa
expect
mahali
Aisha
kwingine
Jumwa
anashikiliwa.
could come back to Ruto's cabinet?
As a gender minister, yeah.
So Aisha Jumwa could be making her way back.
Maybe, I don't know, I'm not the president.
At that juncture, we take a short commercial break. When we come back, I'll also be getting the views of Rova Bonaya, who's the president Kenyatta University. Also, keep sending in your views via social media platforms at K24 TV at Joel Church, and as well on our SMS and WhatsApp numbers on the bottom of your screens. Here on K24, we will be bringing you wall-to-wall coverage without fear or intimidation. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.